Too a little short for a stormtrooper.
What's up, nerds? Welcome to another episode of the Multiverse Report. We are recapping the week's nerdy news from Mumbhattan to Nueva, York, and everywhere in between. Stumbled a little bit over on those titles, but those are across the Spiderverse references for those that you may have seen them. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but enough of my rambling. My name is Mike Gibson. With me, as always, is Steve Haller. What's up, Steve?
Well, not Spiderverse for me, but I've heard nothing but absolutely amazing things. Was occupied this weekend, could not get out to see it, but it seems like it's pretty good, and I think we'll be talking about it later.
Yes, I am going to be giving a spoiler-free review reaction of Across the Spiderverse because I was able to see it just last night, so it's very fresh in my brain still. Going to be talking about that a little bit later. Again, 2 weeks in a row, pretty light weeks for news. I think we're in the part of the year when things maybe start slowing down a little bit because a lot of studios, instead of announcing things, they just go to promoting things like movies that they already have coming out, blockbusters that are scheduled for the summer. Check out last week's summer box office movie preview that we did if you want to hear about some giant nerdy tangential films that are coming out this summer. But I think studios are shifting more into promotion mode and saving some of what they do have to announce. They're going to save for something like San Diego Comic-Con coming up in about a month or a little over a month, I think. Right? Didn't we say it's like the 20-something of July?
Yeah, I think so.
Whatever. And who knows how much stuff we're going to get or how many, who knows what things like Comic-Con are going to look like when we're still in the seemingly early days of the WGA strike, the Writers Guild strike, still going on. We do have a Strike Watch update for you to kick things off today. This week in Strike Watch, the Directors Guild of America reached a tentative deal with Hollywood studios to satisfy their unions and their demands and all those things. So appears that the Directors Guild will not be joining the Writers Guild in a strike. Writers Guild issued a statement that congratulated them, but also kind of admits that it doesn't really help their cause at all. Obviously, the more unions that they can get to go on strike puts more pressure on the studios. Somebody was quoted in the Deadline article from the WGA saying that the WGA takes a stand, the DGA reaps the reward. So basically saying kind of that the Directors Guild kind of use the fact that the writers are on strike as leverage to get more of what they wanted in their negotiations without actually having to go on strike themselves. One of the, I don't know if he's, this guy's Mike something, I don't know his last name. He's a talking head. He is out in front doing interviews about the writer's strike. He's a representative of the Writers Guild. He might be one of the heads of it, or certainly is a voice for it. It was pointed out on Twitter that weeks ago he had said something like his prediction for the Directors Guild, if they make a deal, it's going to be hailed as like a quote historic. Literally in his tweet said it's going to be called a historic deal in order to put more pressure on the writers to cave and go back to negotiations. Oh, the directors made this historic deal, so like we're waiting on you guys. It's all on you. And lo and behold, what is the title of the Deadline article except DGA Reaches historic deal with, like, literally used the exact phrasing that this guy from the WGA predicted that they would use. So things are kind of falling into place. And now all eyes are turning to the Screen Actors Guild, who resume negotiations this week. And I think that the deadline, they had issued a vote, authorized a vote on whether or not to strike. And I think the deadline to vote is Monday or something I saw. So like last minute votes are coming in. They're going to resume negotiations this week. And if a strike is necessary, then they will strike and join the Writers Guild. And then nothing is getting made anywhere ever. So that's where we are with the strike. I was listening to a podcast that's not the people on it were, I think they're members of actors guilds and writers guilds and things, but they
Right.
weren't talking about it. But the topic came up, and one of them made a point that apparently, if you were your own studio, you can make a deal right now. Like you can make your own deal. You don't have there's no union of studios. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the studios agree and the union has to agree, but there's no like one entity representing, Sony and Netflix and
Right. So you have to come up with a
HBO
deal
or
technically
Warner,
with everyone.
Disney. Yeah. So like Disney, if they wanted, could make their own deal with the writers, and that would just be it. And they could go on. And this person on this podcast was saying that they had thought that was a possibility, but it's looking less and less likely as the days go on. Apparently, during the strike of 2007, 2008, David Letterman, who owned his own corporation, his own studio, he was not owned by his show, I guess, was not owned by CBS. It was on CBS, but like he owned it. He actually made his own deal, and he just said, we'll do whatever the end result is, we will abide by that. So that was enough of them to make a deal, and so he could continue making his show, and as opposed to somebody like Conan, who just did entire episodes of him like flicking a quarter and stuff like that, which is also a show of solidarity in its own right. So who knows if the pressure on Marvel gets too great, we may see Disney making their own deal. Who knows? Who knows?
No, I mean at the same time though, when you think of like the Marvel thing, maybe if this does push some things farther, that's what we need for a little space.
I agree.
I mean, we were talking about when the pandemic hit, how you were burnt out and I was getting close to burnout with the Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
And then it went away and WandaVision came back and we're like, oh, this is kind of fresh again. Like maybe a little, but
now we're right back into a place where there's a ton of movies and tons of shows at the same time. But now, like the fact that whether it's a strike or Bob Iger came right out and said, we're going to do less of this. It's too much, so that has slowed things down.
Right. Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah, for sure. And like, there's still, the movies haven't slowed, I don't think yet, but the fact that, there hasn't been a Marvel show since She-Hulk, right? That was the last Marvel show. That was last summer.
Yeah.
All right. That feels, that's a good break for me.
Yeah.
Like I feel like right now I'm ready for Secret Invasion at the end of this month,
right? For
sure, because it's been a while.
Yep.
And Secret Invasion looks great, so I'm excited about that. But like for a while, it was like, right after whatever Moon Knight is immediately Ms. Marvel starts the next week, and right after that, bam, She-Hulk starts the next week. Yo, I need a break from this. So, regardless whether it's budgetary, whether it's Bob Iger, whether it's strikes, I'm all for a break in Marvel stuff. More Marvel chat in a little bit, including my reaction to Across the Spiderverse. But right now, we're moving on to, I feel like from now on, any time we do this could be the last episode, or sorry, the last time that we do Flash Watch. Flash Watch. This is a pretty big one, I gotta say. Pretty big Flash update. And I wasn't thinking that we were going to get too many more big Flash watches as we got close to the movie. Just like, movie's going to come out. That's going to be it. Movie comes out on June 16th, so we're only mere weeks away. I'm very excited for it. I think I have to go see it on Thursday, the Thursday before it comes out, because my schedule that weekend is rough. So, I don't know, Steve. What are you doing Thursday, the 15th of June in the evening?
Probably going to see Flash.
Let me know. Maybe we can get a group together.
There you go.
Apparently, and we remember that back when this movie was suddenly back up in the air as to whether or not it was going to be released, when Ezra Miller was going through the heaviest days of their mental health issues and causing problems left and right in Hawaii and all over the place, really. What seemed to rein them in and get them to, start dealing with their mental health struggles was the fact that Warner Brothers and David Zaslav specifically said that they're considering shelving the film if Ezra Miller can't keep themselves out of trouble.
And for good reason.
And now, for good reason. And that would be shocking for a studio that spent, $300 million on a movie that everyone says is incredible to just put it on the shelf because the lead actor is problematic.
Yeah.
That'd be a big waste of money. And we all know David Zaslav likes canceling things. I'm sure maybe they could get a tax write-off on it, but I don't know. Not as much as they could get if they actually put this movie out. So yeah, they said it was possible that they were going to shelve the movie completely. Now, producer Barbara Muschietti has said that the possibility of shelving the film due to Ezra Miller's mental health struggles and legal struggles was never really on the table at all. And when she was asked about it, she said, not at all. No, that was never real. So I guess they were just kind of
strong arming.
Strong arm. Yeah, exactly. It was an empty threat,
right.
But it worked. It worked. Got Ezra Miller into some mental health counseling, and doubling down on that, director Andy Muschietti, which I believe that they are married. They're not just weirdly having the same last name. Barbara Muschietti is married to director Andy Muschietti. Andy Muschietti stated that there are currently no plans to replace Ezra Miller. Should this thing be big enough to get a sequel? When asked about it in a interview this week, Muschietti said, if it happens, meaning a sequel, if it happens, yes. I don't think there's anyone that can play that character as well as they did. The other depictions of the character are great, but this particular vision of the character, they just excelled in doing it. It feels like a character that was made for them. In principal photography, Ezra was brilliant and the most committed and the most professional. Ezra gave everything for this role, physically, creatively, emotionally. They were absolutely supreme. And then another statement in regards to Miller's mental health issues. The duo said, we have a lot of empathy in general for people who need help, and especially in mental health issues. That's why they are taking the necessary steps to deal with their recovery, and we support them in that, which is true and admirable, of course. Of course.
Absolutely.
Everyone wants the best for somebody struggling with mental health issues. So apparently these were both empty threats. I mean, I guess they never really came out and said Ezra's done, because they didn't want to say that because they want people to go see this movie. But interesting to know that, that they could be moving on should this do as well as people want it to do. I don't know, and that still remains to be seen. Like I said last week when we were talking about our summer movie preview, it's my most anticipated movie of the summer. But I don't know if it's gonna be a smash hit or just kind of be like a meh, fizzle out thing.
Yeah.
And who knows? It's hard to tell. No one knows what the reaction to this is gonna be, and whether the fact that Ezra has had problems in recent months, is that gonna hurt it? Or the fact that Ezra's not doing press for it, is that gonna hurt it? Or is the fact that people are just excited about seeing Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck as Batman again? Like, is that enough to put butts in seats? Like, it is for me. Like, that alone is enough for me. But we'll see. Steve, you got any thoughts on the fact that Ezra doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon? Or
I think
studios?
I think what the big thing is they'll say this now, and then if it kind of gives them an out if the verdict is bad or like something goes more south, but there wasn't any plans. We're doing it. We're going with him or going with them. And it just seems like coach speak.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because Ezra Miller's struggles came down to mental health problems, they kind of, it's easy for them to show support, especially before the movie comes out.
Right.
And it's easier to ask for forgiveness, I think, in that way. It's not like, they murdered somebody, did something,
Right.
like completely unforgivable. Everyone, or not everyone, but a lot of people struggle with mental health. It's like a relatable thing. It's like a real thing. It can really affect you, and it's forgivable in the right circumstances, as long as they didn't do anything unforgivable. So I think you're right. I think it all like we've been saying all along, and like how everyone has been saying. I think this movie all comes down to how successful it is. If it makes $1 billion, then yeah, Ezra's not going anywhere, and we're definitely gonna get a sequel.
Right.
But it also like I'm really interested in knowing how this movie ends, because James Gunn himself has said that this movie sets up the future of the DCU. And if Ezra as the Flash is up in the air at all, whether or not they're talking about it publicly, how does this movie end in a way that gives them leeway to go either way? Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe they knew all of Ezra, and if we have to, we'll recast. But whatever. But it just makes me all the more curious to see how this movie sets up the DCU moving forward. What is the ending of this movie? What is going to happen? What's going on? Like I can't
that's the thing, is there's so many things up in the air right now that it's until we start getting some answers, it's just questions upon questions.
Yeah, and we're not going to get answers until we see the movie, and until it's been out long enough that people can comment on the movie or on the making of it or things like that. Like now that it's out, we can tell you that this is the plan for this character or whatever moving forward. Now that you've seen the ending, you know that Ezra dies or Barry Allen dies or something,
right.
Whatever it's going to be, or disappears into the Speed Force. Should we need them again, whatever. So we'll see. Flash coming out June 16th, my most anticipated movie of the summer. Swinging from that to my second most anticipated movie of summer, which I've now seen, Across the Spiderverse. Steve, I promise you, I'm not going to spoil anything because I know this is your number one most anticipated film.
Yes.
Of the year. You were trying to sneak into a Thursday preview. You didn't end up.
No, I was trying to figure it out. There was no way I could make the timing work. I had other things going on that just wasn't going to happen. But
yeah,
it'll also give me a chance to see if I want to go with my son. So
yeah, sure.
We'll see. We'll see where we go.
Has your son seen Into the Spider-Verse?
Nope. So that was going to be start that tomorrow.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely benefit. Like, you certainly could see this movie without seeing Into the Spider-Verse. You would certainly appreciate it more having seen Into the Spider-Verse. Okay, I'm gonna start my review, reaction, whatever. All the hype that you hear for this movie is earned and deserved and true. Believe it. It's
okay.
Great. It is exceptional. I find this movie to be an exceptional piece of art. As bright and animated and poppy and popcorny as it is, the execution, the artistry behind this film is exceptional in a way I haven't seen since Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out. And I don't know, everything that worked in the first one, everything that you doubted they could pull off in the first one, they just doubled down with in the second one in ways that aren't repetitive. It's not this is kind of rehash of what they did in the first one. No, they move everything forward. They do everything just like in new way. Like they take the things that you loved about the first one, they double down on them in ways that make them feel new. They don't feel like retreads that are like giving you more of the thing you want in a way that doesn't feel like they are half-assing anything at all. They're definitely not half-assing anything in this movie. There were a lot of surprises. I realized kind of before, like heading into the or earlier in the day before we went to see the movie.
Yep.
I realized all of the press, even most of the trailers, really kind of focus on, look at all these different Spider people. Look at all these different crazy versions of Spider-Man and Spider-Woman and Spider-Cat in the trailer or whatever. Like you're getting all these. That's kind of been the focus. They don't give you any story in the trailers at all. And I realized that. I was like, wait a second. I don't know what this movie's about. Like, other than it seems like there's an antagonistic relationship between Miles and Spider-Man 2099. Like, that's what you get in the trailer, and you know there's a villain called the Spot, but he doesn't seem that threatening or whatever. I was like, I don't know what this movie's about, and they're selling it on, doesn't this look fun and funny that like this Spider-Man's wearing a suit and this Spider-Man's got a bag on his head and this
Yeah.
Spider-Man's a dinosaur, like, and that's enough to get people excited about going to see a movie. But man, if you didn't see Into the Spider-Verse, if you just watched the trailers for this movie and they're like, oh, I'm going to see a fun, wacky movie, the story that they hit you with in this movie would just knock you out. Like, you would not be expecting, based on trailers alone, you would, having no prior knowledge of Into the Spider-Verse, based on trailers alone, you would be floored by, well, like the same thing that you would have been floored with Into the Spider-Verse, like the depth of the story and the human connection and the human story that is all based around, which is what makes it work in general. Like, this is a wild story about people from other universes with not only one, it's a story about people with superpowers, which is already, fantastic. Then you bring in multiple universe people with different superpowers. They're all Spider-Man somehow. Like, all that is crazy. The reason that Into the Spider-Verse works is that it's grounded in a human story, in an emotional story that works so well. And it explains everything in a way that you understand. Like, I don't know how they do that, but they did it a second time. They did all of it bigger and like more powerful, and they just did it a second time. I was telling you, I saw you earlier tonight, and I was telling you that there's a scene towards the end of this movie that got me emotional. And I was emotional, not like, it was an emotional scene between two characters, and it was powerful what was being said. Kind of similar to the scene in Into the Spider-Verse when Miles' dad is talking to him through the door.
Yeah.
And he's tied up, and that's like, that gets me every time I watch Into the Spider-Verse, because I just equate it to like talking to my own son,
Right.
There's a moment like that made my wife cry in Across the Spider-Verse, because it's a similar moment, but it's between Miles and his mom, which really got my wife like almost uncontrollably emotional. But this scene that I'm talking about at the end, it's not one that I personally like identified with, but I got emotional, and I'm watching it and I realized that I was getting emotional not only because of what they were talking about, but because of what I was watching on screen. Like, they're doing a thing with the backgrounds where the backgrounds are becoming less and less realistic and more like just impressions of what is there. And it was just gorgeous. It was just beautiful. I was like, I'm watching a moving piece of art right now. Like, what is happening right now is affecting me. Like, the visual of this scene is making me emotional more than the content of it. And I can't say that about many movies at all ever that have done that. I love all the characters in this movie are great. The ones you remember, there's no letdown of the ones you remember. Unfortunately, I can confirm that there's no Spider-Man Noir, there's no Spider-Ham, and there's no Penny Parker. So there's Miles and there's Gwen. This is almost, it's obvious it's a Miles movie. It's almost a Gwen movie. It's almost a Gwen Stacy Spider-Woman movie at the same time. There's a lot of attention paid to her, and her giving her a great story arc. So look out for that. Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, excellent. Certainly an antagonist, not necessarily the villain, but an antagonist for sure, for reasons that are explained in the movie that you don't necessarily see coming. I gotta say, my favorite addition to the cast probably was Spider-Punk, voiced by Daniel Kaluuya. Loved him. Amazing. He's like, and one of the things they doubled down on is like mixing and matching the animation styles and giving all the main characters their like a specific style. Spider-Punk looks like he's drawn on newspaper, like newsprint, or like with a marker on, like you can see faded lines of newsprint underneath the details of him. It's like just wildly cool. It's awesome. So cool. It is so cool. There's cameos galore. in this movie, and there are some direct cameo. And when I say cameos, I mean like anything that you could define as a cameo from like Easter eggs. Maybe is a better Easter egg / cameos.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, there's Easter eggs all over the place. There are very direct cameos that I can't even really describe more than that. That'll just be very exciting. There were times like my son, who hasn't, my son hasn't seen any of the live action Spider-Man movies. He's seen like a couple Spider-Man cartoons. He read some Spider-Man books. So like he's not as into like the lore of the character.
Yeah.
So there were so many times when I went, oh, wow. And he would go, what's that? And I had to be like, well, this is like a reference to this thing from blah, blah, blah. So like, he didn't really get everything. And he doesn't have to, they're showing a Spider-Man. And I'm like, oh, that's a reference to this thing, so it works for me. But if you don't know, you don't really know. But still very impressive what they're able to squeeze into, a thing. Speaking of squeezing into it, the one negative thing I'll say about this movie, I thought it felt a little long. I think they probably could have trimmed it back a little bit and made it tighter. That being said, I didn't feel like, oh, when is this going to be over at all? I loved every second of it, but it just felt a little long.
Yep.
And that being said, the pacing is quick. Like it doesn't drag at all. Like they give you a lot right from the beginning. It starts with a bang and it doesn't really ever stop. And that's, I guess I should, that's really all I can say without going into spoiler territory. It's great. I think I use that app, Letterboxd, and then I think the review, I wrote something last night. I just said, basically it was me saying, wow, oh my God, holy shit, over and over again for 2 hours. Like, that was basically
that's awesome.
What the experience was. And I really feel like it is an experience more than even just watching a movie. Like, I don't know, like the end, the end cranks up the intensity quite a bit. And I'm very thankful, without giving anything away, I'm very thankful that the third part of this trilogy, Beyond the Spider-Verse, comes out in less than a year. It comes out March 29th, 2024. And I cannot wait to see that movie based on the way this one ends. That's all I will say. That's all I will say. So, questions? I'm not going to spoil anything, but is that everything you need to know? You don't need to know anything. You were in the bag for this movie. Like,
right. Yeah. No matter what, I was going to it. So it's not like, not like you need to sell me much, but that all sounds, it sounds like they're hitting the right notes from the beginning and that they're listening to what worked in the first one, which was just about everything. But I mean,
big yawn from Steve.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's all right.
Brain just not functioning. So Into the Spider-Verse, I usually rate in like the top 3 to 5 comic book movies I've ever seen. Probably top 3.
Same.
And
Same.
If this is carrying that bar or improving that, then I don't think there's anything to be, I don't know, tepid on or have questions about or whatever.
I mean, I think it's rare that a sequel to an incredible movie can be as equally as incredible.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of times where the first movie's like pretty good and then the sequel's amazing.
Right.
Or the sequel's not as good because they can't recapture the thing. This is like, you can tell the same team made this movie and like they just, it's rare that they're like, oh yeah, no dip in quality. Like some people are saying it's better than the first one. For me right now, it's my second favorite Spider-Man movie of all time. So that's after Into the Spider-Verse and before any live action Spider-Man movie, before Homecoming or Spider-Man 2 or all that stuff that I love also. So as it's doing very well so far, it has so far made over $200 million worldwide and has the second highest grossing opening weekend of the year so far, behind only Super Mario Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes movies like Ant-Man, Quantumania, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So, other live action blockbusters that have come out this year are already being beaten by Across the Spider-Verse. So there you go. I would highly advise anyone listening to this podcast, if they haven't seen Into the Spider-Verse, watch that and then immediately go. This is definitely like a theater movie. Like, it's a good one to see in the theater for sure. For sure.
That would be
speaking
great.
Speaking of seeing Spider-Man movies in the theater, we learned this week that there are more Spider movies on the way. Doing press for Into the Spider-Verse. Famed, infamous, renowned Spider-Man producers Amy Pascal and Avi Arad said that there are more Spider-Man movies on the way, live action, including a live-action Miles Morales movie is in the works, and also an animated Spider-Woman spin-off movie, likely revolving around the Spider-Gwen or Spider-Woman Gwen Stacy character from Into the Spider-Verse. Pascal said, "You'll see all of it. It's all happening." And then in regards to the Spider-Woman movie, Avi Arad said, "It'll happen sooner than you would expect. I cannot tell you yet, but it's coming." So they're working on more of these. And that's kind of, I was talking with my wife after we saw Across the Spider-Verse. And we're like, okay, they clearly have a plan for Beyond the Spider-Verse, the next one, because like they making them both at the same time. But both these movies they're, I don't want this to be something that they run into the ground. Like, Sony has, done things like that. Move
but if
too fast, and
if they can
fumble
take
the ball.
it and find a way to make it a functional trilogy, and like you said, they've already planned it out and recorded most of it. It's not a bad way to go, and a bad way to put a bow on this part of the franchise and then move on to something else, or it's just a matter of whether they actually do.
Right. Yeah. I think, there's certainly plenty of characters in this movie that that deserve their own movie. That would be like, I would watch a Peter B. Parker movie. I'd watch a Spider-Gwen movie. I'd watch a Spider-Ham movie, for God's sake. Like, there's so many, especially in this new one. Like, I would watch a Miguel O'Hara movie tomorrow.
Yeah.
If they wanted to give me that. So I think that's a way to keep the idea going, but not necessarily like run the Spider-Verse Miles franchise into the ground before you don't want to have diminishing returns. You want to move forward when you have a story that you want to tell. Also, as far as another Tom Holland Spider-Man movie goes, Amy Pascal said, "Are we going to make another movie? Of course we are. We're in the process, but the writer's strike, nobody's working during the strike. We're all being supporters, and whenever they get themselves together, we'll get started." First of all, I think that's a pretty shitty way to describe whenever they get themselves together. That's not a great thing to say about the writer's strike.
Hey,
they have
figure
themselves
it out
together. It's the studios that aren't working with them. So, and Tom Holland himself seemed to echo those statements in an interview he gave this week, saying in regards to fourth appearance of fourth Spider-Man movie, he said, "I can't talk about that, but I can say that we have been having meetings. We put those meetings on pause in solidarity with the writers, but there's been multiple conversations had, and at this point, it's very, very early stages." Of course, it is. So.
Right. Which we knew. So we knew they weren't going to, leave the golden goose on the shelf for too long.
No, wait, of course not.
Yeah.
So Steve, I started listening to a few episodes of this. There's a podcast called Blank Check, and it's two movie people or movie lovers that they pick a director's filmography.
Okay.
And the idea is like, this is an indie director that blew up on the scene early and then was given a blank check for the rest of their career. So they've done Spielberg, and they've done James Cameron, and
Lucas
last
probably.
year, they did Sam Raimi one.
Okay.
And I started because I happened to find this podcast when Evil Dead Rise was coming out, and they did episodes on the Evil Dead trilogy, so I listened to all those. They're great. And now I started listening to the one on Spider-Man. And it has prompted me to ask you this question.
Oh boy.
What was your experience like leading up to seeing the original Spider-Man movie? Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire. Like, were you excited? Like the hype, like what do you like remember about like seeing it for the first time or impressions of the first time you saw it?
God, looking back on that, like I don't have any visceral memory of it. It's like,
Really?
yeah. I'm trying to think what year that was.
I think it was like 2000, early 2000s or something. It was like 2001 or 2. No, it came after. It must have been 2002 because it came after 9/11.
Yeah.
Because I believe they had to like change something. They had something with the World Trade Center and they had to take it out or had to reshoot something.
Right. So at that point in time, I think, May 3rd, 2002.
Yeah.
So I was a senior in high school. And
Sounds right. Yeah, I think I was like freshman in college, sophomore in college, something like that.
Yeah, like I remember going to see it and not having any real visceral reaction to it. Weirdly.
Really? Wow, that's a shock.
I would agree. But
Yeah.
like the Raimi films I remember enjoying.
Yeah.
But never really going crazy over them. Like I had all of them on DVD and whatever and rewatched the hell out of them, but it wasn't like, I don't know. It just didn't have the same feel. And I don't know. It's going to be a take, but I think it tracks with what I said in No Way Home, that Toby as Spidey never really hit.
Never did it for you.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And and I believe if we go back to the No Way Home episode, that tracks with what I said, because it's, I don't know. I get why people like that representation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just something about it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Not what I expected, but still a great answer.
Yeah.
Because it flies in the face of what I would my answer.
Yeah, I was going to say, where were you
out of my mind
on that? Yeah,
I was just it's like X-Men had come out.
Yep.
You know, and I was like, oh, they made a good X-Men movie, but you know, they had to change the costumes and stuff. Like it was like, I think it was like, okay, we understand that in order to get a movie about comic book franchise that we love, they have to like change it because, you know, they can't put Wolverine in a blue and yellow suit and, you know, they have to make it cooler, whatever. But then Spider-Man came out and it just felt like a comic book.
The spandex.
You know what I mean? Right.
Or whatever those.
But like Spider-Man, but like Raimi just like totally embraced the goofiness of Spider-Man, more or less, I thought. And it was like, you know, and it may be something that didn't play well for you, but if you think about the tone of that first movie, is so like, it's like half camp, like there's like silliness and like the way Toby is playing Peter Parker is like so not cool. Like it's not like a cool movie, really, you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
you know, like
I
didn't try to make like, we got to make this so cool and slick and blah 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 blah. He just made like a Spider-Man movie, like a comic book movie, really. And it's kind of shocking that, like they were talking about this in the podcast, it's shocking that the studio let him make the movie like that, especially coming off X-Men, where it's like they're wearing black leather suits and they're so cool and we're like a, you know, they had to make that.
Well, they saved all that bullshit for Spider-Man 3.
Yes. Yeah. And I haven't gotten to the episode on Spider-Man 3 yet, but I'm sure that's going to be quite interesting. And it's just like,
what was the name of that pod?
Blank Check with Griffin and David. It's really good.
Yeah, I think you talked about that last week too.
I don't remember. Yeah. But yeah, it's good. And you know, like thinking about it now, it's like it changed. It's the movie that changed Hollywood. Like it gave us what we have now. I think you know it's hard to explain to somebody even 10 years younger than us that like, oh no, this was a huge deal that they're making a Spider-Man movie. Like we never, you know, and you know, because those concessions about the black suits and stuff, I was like, hey, whatever it takes for them to make an X-Men movie, great. I just want one in my life. Like I don't care if they're not wearing the colored suits. I just give me an X-Men movie. But then to get like, oh, Spider-Man and he's bright yellow and or not yellow, bright red and blue, and all this looks like Spider-Man. He's goofy. He's a nerd. Like he's not. They didn't make him like a cool kid. They just made him a goofball nerd at the same. Like, oh, this is Spider-Man. It was just.
Meanwhile, James Franco plays
cool.
Harry, like the straight man, and
Yep.
Willem Dafoe just does Willem Dafoe thing. So that it is weird because like looking back on it, I don't know if it's the nostalgia or what, but the whole movie itself, I can look back on like lovingly and dote on it. But yeah, I remember when it came out, it was just like, okay, cool, they made a Spider-Man movie.
Wow, yeah.
And I don't know if I had just been, I don't know what it was.
Were you maybe more like disconnected from your nerd love at that time?
It might have been, it might have been like a downtime.
Yeah.
Because like toward the end of high school and early college, like that wasn't really in the wheelhouse. And then I remember in college, X3 or X2 came out, and like going to see that with my friends at in college on like opening night or opening weekend in Rotterdam Mall in like, so I was at Union at the time, and I'm like, oh, this tiny little theater in Rotterdam Mall, okay, let's go.
Okay.
And it was great, and like it was an experience, but I don't know.
So give me, now that we're having this conversation and your answer is different than I thought, and I feel like now, okay, I stop talking.
Rabbit hole
it. Give me your, off the top of your head, top 3 Spider-Man movies.
Top 3 Spider-Man movies.
Or 5 if you need to go to 5.
With or without Spider-Verse, because that's guaranteed number 1.
Okay, same here.
After hearing you talk, I think Across is number 2, but we can't put it in yet.
No, you haven't seen it. No, not omitting Across the Spider-Verse, obviously, because you haven't seen it yet.
It probably, I mean, maybe the 1978 Japanese one.
Seriously?
No, not at all.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say.
No
way. Yeah.
If I remember right, that was so ridiculous it wasn't even funny. It's got to be. I mean, that Spider-Man has to be the number 2, or does it?
I don't know.
Like Homecoming's right there.
Homecoming's my number 3.
I was gonna say Homecoming might be 2 for me.
I love it.
Yeah, I don't know. And then probably Spider-Man 2.
Okay, yeah. All right. So there's a Raimi movie in your top 3. That's what I asked because I wasn't sure.
Well, and because I like Raimi. Like, I love what Raimi does, but for some reason that one,
Yeah. Well, there has been, because the tone of that movie is so now not what superhero movies are at all. Like, no movie that they make now about Spider-Man is going to feel like that first Spider-Man movie ever again.
No, the closest you'd come is like She-Hulk or Deadpool.
Well, yeah, probably, but not like Deadpool. Like
Deadpool's the over-the-top version of that.
Yes. Yeah.
Like crank Spinal Tap that and just crank it up to 11 and you get Deadpool.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess, and it's certainly as far as like characterizations.
Right.
Like as far like specific to each character. But like the way Toby plays Peter Parker is just like so like soft kind of, and he's not he's like an introverted, like gentle like version of Peter Parker. He's not like loud in any way. Which is so, and it's cool that like they're kind of talking about this podcast too, and I didn't realize at the time, but like when he shows up in, spoiler alert, when he shows up in No Way Home, he hasn't changed that at all. Like he's still playing the exact same quiet, reserved Peter, which is like really cool. But if we're never going to see a Peter Parker like that ever again. But I think because of that, I think there has been people who kind of look down on the Raimi movies a little bit more. Spider-Man 2 is kind of a standout across the board.
Right.
It's great. But I think people have like not hate, but like kind of shove the Raimi movies aside in favor of something a little slicker like the Garfield movies or Tom Holland stuff, you know.
Well, I think any of the Garfield movie love is very new.
Yeah. Well,
'Cause I remember,
certainly for the Amazing 2, the second one.
Right. The first one was solid. The second
but it
one
also
was,
came out at a time when we just saw 3 like 3 years before or whatever. Like we don't
right.
that like there was a backlash against restarting it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And redoing the origin story and the whole blah blah blah.
Yeah.
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 Did you know that James Cameron wanted to direct the first Spider-Man movie?
No.
And he actually wrote a script, and he's the one that had the idea for the organic web shooters. That's like his biggest contribution that stayed in the script that made it all the way to the finished product. And apparently, for a long time, the front runner to direct was, I just had his name in my head, David Fincher.
That would be a very different movie.
A very different movie, right? A very different movie. And it would be probably more like slick and trying to be cool.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Yeah, that.
But again, I would have taken that. Like I said, like at that time in my life or in the world, when they weren't cranking out Spider-Man movies every 2 years, it was you're making a Spider-Man movie, I'll take any way you can give it to me.
Well,
put
think
them
about
all in
that
black
time
and it's
too. Like
whatever.
Fincher's coming off Fight Club probably at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like
which was
7
I think,
and
why...
then Fight Club. Like that's a feel.
Yeah, it would have been wild. It would have been wild. And it would have been radically different in tone and style and everything.
Huh. Well, I'm glad I could blow your mind with my answer there.
Yeah, yeah. It's making me want to go back and rewatch. Like I rewatched.
I was kind of just thinking that of like now I kind of want to go back and see that again.
I rewatched all of them before No Way Home came out.
Okay.
At least the first 2. I don't think I ever want to sit through 3 again. There's a good movie in there somewhere, but
no, like we said, there's 3 good movies in there. They just shoved them all into one.
Which I think, from all reports, and again, I haven't listened to the podcast episode about 3. I definitely will be doing that. But I'm pretty sure that was just because of studio interference.
Yeah, the whole Venom story is from the studio.
Yeah. Right, and I think like they mentioned, I think that in this podcast they did mention that they interpret the way he handled Eddie Brock and Venom, like, okay, you're forcing me to do this. I'm going to do it in a way that I want to do it, and not in the way that anyone's expecting me to. You know, I'm not going to make a big hulking brute Brock Sampson. I'm not going to make Venom huge or whatever. Like, it's just going to be like, yeah, I'll do it, but I'm going to do it in the Sam Raimi-est way, and you know that I'm going to do it, and as a like kind of like an FU back to the studio, like, fine, I'll do it, but this is how I'm going to do it.
Right.
And speaking of Deadpool,
I was going to say, speaking of FUs
and FUs, these are unconfirmed reports that came out this week. Steve sent them my way. Unconfirmed reports that James Marsden, Famke Janssen, and Halle Berry may be reprising their roles as Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Storm in Deadpool 3. I would not be surprised at all if this was what they were doing. Like, the second you get Hugh Jackman, like, oh, who else can we get? Who else can we finally give this Deadpool X-Men team up movie that we want?
Well, and even if it's just a quick cameo or whatever when they're flipping through the multiverse, it would still be cool to see them, suited up or whatever.
Yeah.
Could just be like in the Deadpool movie where they open up when they opened up one of Xavier's classrooms there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it's like,
that's great.
Something simple like that.
Silently close the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, it could be anything. Like, we know, like, I feel like my expectations are that he's going to run through a universe from his into, the one where Wolverine is or whatever, to get him, and maybe when he gets Wolverine, then the others will be there. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, I guess my guess is that it's more cameo. It's more in the neighborhood of cameo than it is like, big part character, big like storyline for these characters. I think it's probably more cameo. in nature. Also hearing the rumor that we're going to get the return of a Fox X-Men universe villain, possibly the return of an MCU villain as well, but not one that is on the forefront of anybody's minds, like a,
Right.
And again, these are unconfirmed reports from like someone who claims to be a scooper online that I don't know the validity of any of these claims. Certainly the other X-Men actors, that seems like a no-brainer. If you're getting Wolverine, you want to get other people too.
Right.
And if this closes the door on the Fox universe better than Dark Phoenix did, then I am all in. All in on this happening.
Spoiler alert, Mike. I don't know if it's possible to close it worse than that.
There's not too many movies that I've seen that I left the theater angry that I saw that movie, but Dark Phoenix was one of them. And it wasn't that it was just, I mean, it was bad, but I wasn't angry at how bad it was. I was angry at how just like what a waste of time it was, I guess.
Yep.
I felt like it just, we all knew that it was the last one of those that they were going to make, and they just didn't do anything that was worthy of that at all. And I was just mad that they didn't take any big swings, or it was just like the safest movie ever. It just sucked.
They made a movie. That's about all I can say.
Somehow they made a movie.
I can't wait until I think I was telling you podcast wise, another Syracuse based podcast, the Super Pod Hero Cast.
Yeah.
They do like movie rundowns. I can't wait until they get to like any of that or Spidey 3 or whatever to just rip apart.
Yeah. Yep. Spider-Man 3, like, I always kind of had a soft spot for it. I remember speaking of like hype, going into a movie, I was out of my mind seeing Spider-Man 3.
Mm.
Like, I was like, because specifically in Spider-Man 2, at the end of Spider-Man 2, when Harry throws that knife into the mirror, he's seeing he's seeing the spirit of his dad talking to him, and the mirror breaks and it like leads into the lair, and he finds the Green Goblin stuff. I was like, holy shit, they're doing the Harry Goblin shit, and that's gonna be what the third one is. I'm so excited. Like, I lost my mind in the theater. Embarrassed the girl that I was with. Like, to no end. So I was so hyped for Spider-Man 3. And some of it I liked, some of it was not great. And even on the last time I watched it, I was like, oh, the bad parts are real bad. But, those three, the main three, are really doing good work, like acting wise. Like, they're not acting like this is a terrible movie. Like, they don't know this is they don't know they're in a bad movie. Like, they're giving it their all. That's Maguire, Dunst, and Franco. They're really doing a good job. It's just too much. Too much is happening. Then the dialogue at the big fight in the end is horrible. It's just really, really bad. It makes no sense. So much of it makes no sense. Anyway. But that's those, like, the movies, like, even when we did our Star Wars rankings for May the 4th with our friend of the pod, Matt Paseda, it's almost more fun talking about a bad movie than talking about a good one, because if you're in a group of people and you're like, yeah, that movie's great. Yep, it's great. There's nothing else to say about it. We all love it. But then you're like, oh, that movie sucks. Let's talk about all the reasons that it's more fun complaining about a bad movie. So, like, I almost enjoy listening to podcasts about bad movies more than I enjoy listening to podcasts. Almost.
Yeah. No, it's
just like a different energy.
Yeah, it is. And finding the different points of a movie that people think are bad, also a very different. Like, you may agree it's a bad movie. You may not agree on what parts you think of the bad movie. Right,
exactly. And that's similar to, I'm sure Spider-Man 3 is part of this, but, like, again, going back to when we were ranking our Star Wars things, it's all like everyone agrees Rise of Skywalker is not great, but not everyone agrees on what doesn't make it great.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
and how not great it is.
Yeah. Or the sequels in general. Like, people, like the guys on Star Wars Minute say this all the time, where they're like, everyone agrees there's, like, in Force Awakens, there's too much fan service. Nobody agrees, on the percentage of too much fan service, or like, what counts as fan service, or whatever. But, anyway, moving from movies and television into comics, J. Michael Straczynski announced as the new Captain America writer. Straczynski is known for a lot of work at the Big Two, including a 6-year run on Spider-Man. He's also written big runs on Thor, Fantastic Four, Silver Surfer, Squadron Supreme, and over at DC, he's worked on Superman, Wonder Woman, Brave and the Bold, and he did a couple Watchmen spinoffs early 2000s before Watchmen. And now he's going to be back with Marvel and on Captain America. About the series, he was quoted saying, "Overall, the goal is to do some really challenging stories, some really fun stories, and to get inside Steve's head to see who he really is in ways that may not have been fully explored before. If folks like what I did with Peter in Amazing Spider-Man and with Thor in Thor, then they should give this a shot because I'm really swinging for the bleachers on this one." Now, this run is going to replace the current. There's 2 Captain America books running. It's like Captain America, Sentinel of Liberty, and Captain America something else. I don't remember what the other subtitle is, but there's 2 Cap books right now. This is going to replace at least one of those, and it's going to be Captain America new number one, coming out September 20th, with Jesus Says on art.
There you go.
Yeah. So Steve, you're a Marvel guy. I mean, I'm not a Marvel guy, but you read more Marvel than me. Straczynski's works on Spider-Man or Thor or anything, and I mean, I know his name. I don't know that I've read much of what he's written. I think I've read a few of his Spider-Man books, but do you have big opinions on him?
You might be familiar with Superman Earth 1.
Yeah, I've read a little bit of Superman Earth 1. Yeah, that's the one that he did.
He did some Watchmen spinoffs too, I think, for DC.
Yep. Yeah, but Watchmen stuff.
For better or for worse, he was the one who wrote One More Day.
Yeah.
So
I saw that when I was looking up his bibliography.
I mean, he had some highs with Spidey, but he had some lows too. So as long as we don't get a Captain America One More Day, we should be okay.
Yeah, but also like One More Day stuff, I feel like that came from on high. Don't you think that was like a corporate
Might
thing?
have, yeah.
You know, like it seems like, because that's when, like, before the Tom Holland thing, wasn't that right before the Tom Holland movies came out, or was that? Am I thinking
2007? So I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
When the first Holland movie came out.
Well, I think, that would have been right around when they were rebooting it. I think
Homecoming was 2017.
Didn't Spider-Man 3 come out in 2007? I don't know. I feel like maybe they were they knew the movies were rebooting, and then they're like, "Oh well, we can't have." Like, it was just the classic thing. Like, we can't have Spider-Man be an adult and be married and happy. He's got to be a struggling kid. Like they're doing right now. They're divorcing him from Mary Jane and taking all that stuff away, which is. But
what is it gonna take to get Spider-Man to just continue an arc instead of resetting him every time?
I know. It's just, I know I've said this before, but there's been so many times that I try to get back into Spider-Man, and I pick up a book and I look at the first few pages and I'm like, this doesn't feel like Spider-Man to me. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Spider-Man to me is like, somebody's robbing a bank on this side of town, but I have a job interview on the other side of town.
Right.
And I can't do both, but I have to stop this guy. So I know that this is gonna, like, whatever villain he has to stop, he has to do it in a way that's going to ruin his personal life in some way,
Yep.
And I feel like most modern Spider-Man books are like, he's got a cool tech suit from Norman Osborn or from Tony Stark, and he's got all these, he's fighting, there's aliens and stuff. Like, I don't know, just give me, he's Aunt May needs medicine or something, and he's got a whatever, he forgets to buy eggs. I don't know, because he's fighting Green Goblin while trying not to break the carton of eggs that he got from the store, like stuff like that. Like, that's Spider-Man. I don't know, and I know you can't make a full issue of Spider-Man about him not breaking eggs, but you probably could.
You could. I mean, the last run of Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man I read was kind of in that vein.
I know. I gotta read Friendly Neighborhood. Is that Tom Taylor? Did he write all that? He wrote some of it, didn't he?
Let me see. He did.
No, that's
yeah, he did volume 2. Straczynski did.
Okay.
Peter David Straczynski did volume 1.
Any relation?
No, Peter
Michael
David and
Straczynski?
J. Michael Straczynski.
Okay.
They
Sorry.
wrote the
Okay.
first. Yeah.
Oh,
So
so definitely relation because they're the same person.
yes,
Total relation. 100% relation. Yeah.
they are related.
Yeah. Friendly Neighborhood is a title I keep hearing good stuff about. I feel like I should get a trade of it, or at least maybe just the
I
Tom
think-
Taylor one because I know.
I
Tom
think I
Taylor's
actually have some floppy, like the floppies of the first 6 or so Tom Taylor ones.
great. Oh, nice.
So
There's
let me-
one of
let me
those
try and
early
dig
Tom
those up.
Taylor ones that is like revered as like one of the best issues of Spider-Man ever. I think it might number 6. I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know. Is there one where there's like a little spider sidekick or something that shows up and it seems weird, but then it becomes incredible? I don't know. That's what I've heard about. I never read it.
and, who the hell is he working with? There's a lot of him and Johnny Storm.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I've never read
I
it.
think
just know that
Johnny Storm
I've
moves in
read-
with him.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, there's some stuff.
All right. Cool. I'll check it out sometime. Speaking of comics, this week in your local comic book store, we got Adventures of Superman John Kent number 4, Batman number 136, Blood Tree number 5, Captain America Sentinel of Liberty number 13, Daredevil number 12, Deadpool Batter Blood number 1, Fantastic Four number 8, Flash number 800, Godfell number 4, Hell to Pay number 5, I Hate This Place number 9, Immortal Xmen number 12, In Hell We Fight number 1. Super cool title.
Yeah.
Joker, The Man Who Stopped Laughing number 9, Joker Uncovered number 1. That's a one shot. Not sure what that is. Junk Rabbit. I didn't write the number down. Maybe it's number 1. Loki number 1. Money Shot Comes Again number 2. Peacemaker Tries Hard number 2. I read the first issue of Peacemaker Tries Hard and I thought it was hilarious and great. So I will probably pick up Peacemaker Tries Hard number 2. Super fun. Poison Ivy number 13, now an official ongoing book at DC. Pick out Poison Ivy. You will not regret it. Red Goblin number 5, Shazam number 2, Spider-Man number 9, Star Trek Defiant number 4, Star Wars 35, Star Wars Yoda number 8, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles versus Street Fighter number 1.
Okay.
What is that? I don't know, but sounds wild. Venom number 20, X-Men number 23, and You've Been Canceled number 1. It's a lot going on in the world of comics this week. Steve, you picking up any of these, or have you read anything recently that's worth mentioning?
Yoda 8's on the poll. That might actually be the only pulled book I've got on here. Now that I'm looking at it.
I think I
Daredevil.
got Batman.
Yeah. I'm still pulling the ongoing Daredevil.
Oh, yeah.
And Batman.
Yeah, I got Batman and Poison Ivy. I thought about canceling my Poison Ivy because just to like trim down, like I need to I need to back off for a little bit. I feel like I've been buying too much stuff lately. But it's just so good. Like I read number 12 and I was like, "Ooh, this is great." And it's not really wrapping everything's up, so I should keep reading it. I don't know, it's tough.
That's
like I said,
yeah, keep going.
No, I was saying, like I said, Peacemaker I'll probably grab. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's it. I feel like I've been buying a lot of like back issues lately. Like we talked about those garage sale finds that we found last week and stuff. So I haven't done too much with those yet. But what do you got? You're holding
Daredevil 10.
Daredevil. Oh,
Kevin Eastman cover.
Whoa, from Eastman and Laird, Ninja Turtle creator fame.
So his first cover he's doing, I think he's on deck for a couple of covers for Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
But fittingly, because of the influence for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Daredevil number 10 was the first one that he's done.
Oh, sure.
So
yeah,
it's got that kind of classic Eastman style.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I'm sure he was excited to do a Daredevil cover.
Yeah,
because clearly they were big fans of Daredevil.
Right. And they made a whole their entirety of work off of being fans of Daredevil.
Yeah.
Worked
For
out
those
okay.
of you who don't know, we're talking about the canister of chemicals that hit Matt Murdock in the face as a child and blinded him. According to Ninja Turtles lore, is this is not official because they're owned by different companies, but according to the creators, that same canister that blinded Matt Murdock then sewer and soaked some pet turtles and mutated them into the Ninja Turtles. So that's how they created those characters. And there's been like plenty of references over the years to Daredevil in Turtles comics and things like that. So very cool that the creators finally got to do a Daredevil cover. I mean, I guess I don't know if he's ever done any artwork officially, but it's cool. Cool nonetheless.
Yeah, so for anyone that isn't familiar with the Turtles and where they originated, the concept, quote unquote, parodied several elements popular in superhero comics at the time: the teenagers from the New Teen Titans, the mutants of the Uncanny X-Men, and the ninjas of Daredevil, combined with the comic tradition of funny animals like Howard the Duck.
Yeah, making them turtles.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's how they ended up turtles and ninjas and mutants and teenage. Because at the time,
genius.
that was all those were poking through the comic book zeitgeist, and
let's take these 4 things that are popular, roll them into one thing, and make billions of dollars. Done. Yeah.
Yep.
Wild and crazy. We got no one shot.
That's what
tonight.
it was.
Oh, what?
When I was in Maine this weekend, I completely forgot to mention this. Was up in Maine with good friend of the pod, Adam Karki, and a couple other friends. We ended up going into a comic shop. They had a 9/8 TMNT 1.
Whoa.
I want you to tell me what the price was.
Oh. Jeez. I don't know. I've never looked up number 1. So the original Eastman and Laird run, where it's like mostly black and white.
Yeah, the covers them on the rooftop in the kind of red haze.
Yep.
because the first run was mostly black and white with just like red, right? Like all their masks were red. They did not.
Yep.
They didn't have different colors or anything like that. That was a cartoon convention.
Right.
How much would that be? 9.8. $300,000.
No. Way over.
Overshooting. Okay, way over. I don't know. I
was,
just think about like Action Comics is like $3 million
like,
or something, you know. So like,
I think it was like $1,650.
Okay, that's still a lot of money.
Yeah,
I was
like
way overshooting.
Yeah, like 300K. If that was like Spidey.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the turtle, it was like we're sitting there looking at it. I'm like, I don't have that money, but that's a really cool book.
Yeah, that is a really cool book. Yeah, that's way too. Yeah, I was way overestimating.
Yeah, so Go Collect has the. Well, maybe that wasn't a 9.8 that I'm thinking of. Or maybe I should have bought it because a 9.6 sold for $54K.
Whoa.
Yeah, maybe I should have bought that.
Maybe you should be driving back up to Maine.
A 4.0 is $6,500.
Whoa.
Huh.
That was a deal.
Graded 6.0 sold for $12K. Yeah. If anybody wants to drive back up to Maine with me, let me know.
Hey, I'll go. I don't know much about beer, but if you're going to Maine for a comic book run, I'm in.
Crazy. Wow. Sorry. Now I'm down the rabbit hole looking at these. I'm like,
yeah.
Huh.
No problem. Steve, that's all I got. I think we are done for the night. Like we said, it's a little bit of slow news week, but we filled the time talking about Spider-Man and all kinds of other stuff.
Oh, always. We always find a way to fill the time.
We do our best, but I think that's all I got. I'm tapped out, and I feel like you've been yawning. You're probably aching to get to sleep. So let's wrap this thing up.
Yeah, we came back from said main trip today, so it's been a long day.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, if you would like to keep in touch with us, feel free to like, subscribe, maybe leave us an email, themultiverseport@gmail.com. Check us out on the socials, the Multiverse Report, Multiverse RPT on Twitter. Beyond that, like, subscribe, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or YouTube. Both help the masses find us via various algorithms that I don't understand, and I doubt Mike does either. So
Not at all.
Yep. So yeah, that's about all I got.
That's all I got too. So until next time, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you in the multiverse.